All right, on tonight's episode of Python Papi, we're back inside our artificial intelligence course and we're still doing our learning module. Let's have a look at what we went over tonight. Now, if you recall, the last thing we went over was supervised learning. So tonight we're going to pick it up where we left off with unsupervised learning. So in unsupervised learning, we don't have any access to any of those labels like raining or not raining, counterfeit or not counterfeit, but we would still like to learn some of those patterns. And one of the tasks that we might want to perform in supervised learning is something called clustering. Clustering is organizing a set of objects into groups in such a way that similar objects tend to be in the same group. Where clustering is just a task given some set of objects organized into distinct clusters, groups of objects that are similar to one another. And there's a lot of applications for clustering. Some clustering applications are genetic research, image segmentation, market research, medical imaging, social network analysis. And one technique for clustering is an algorithm known as k-means clustering. And k-means clustering is an algorithm for clustering data based on repeatedly assigning points to clusters and updating those cluster centers. And what k-means clustering is going to do is going to divide all of the data points into a k different clusters, and is going to do so by repeating this process, assigning points to clusters, and then moving around those clusters. I'm sorry, let me do that again. And what k-means clustering is going to do is going to divide all of the data points into k different clusters. Is going to do so by repeating this process by assigning points to clusters and then moving around those cluster centers. We're going to define a cluster by its center, the middle of the cluster, and then assign points to that cluster based on which center is closest to that point. We'll go over an example of that now. So if you see here, we have this set of clusters, this set of clusters, and this set of clusters. This one B stands for blue, this R stands for red, this G stands for green. Here we have a whole bunch of unrelated data, just various data points that are in some sort of graphical space, and we would like to group them into various different clusters. But we don't know how to do that originally. Let's say we want to assign 3 clusters to this group. We have to choose how many clusters we want in k-means clustering, but we can try multiple and see how well those values perform. But we'll start just by randomly picking some places to put the center of those clusters. Maybe a blue cluster, a red cluster, and a green cluster, like I showed you. We're going to start with the centers of those clusters just being in these 3 locations as specified. And what k-means clustering tells us to do is once we have the centers of those clusters, assign every point to a cluster based on which cluster center is it closest to. So we end up with something like this. So we have a center of our blue cluster here, we have the center of our red cluster here, and then we have the center of our green cluster here. Where all of the points labeled B are closest to the blue cluster center than any other cluster center. All of the points labeled G are closest to the green cluster center than any other cluster center. And all of the labels red or R are closest to the red cluster center than any other center. So here's one possible assignment for all of these points. Now, I'm not going to go over every different aspect of the K clustering that we went over tonight. We did do a few of them. Like I said, we actually did finish up the learning module. We're going to be starting a new module tomorrow. So yeah, I'm not going to dive completely into K clustering, but that was the gist of it. And yeah, so tomorrow we will pick up with the neural networks. And with the neural networks is we will take a look at how computers are able to draw inspiration from human intelligence. I'm going to leave it like that for now. But yeah, so yeah, we are officially, after 5 different files, we are officially done our learning module. And tomorrow we will pick up with our neural networks module. And yeah, and the last thing we left off with was the K clustering, just to give you a fresh idea of what we left off with. But of course, I will keep you guys posted every step of the way. But for now, this is the Python Papi. You guys stay Gucci.